Wow, Sheila Gunn Reid, look at you. You look like, I don't know, a reporter with the Moscow Daily Bugle.
Don't say that.
The,
I'll have seize my bank account. Don't say that.
boy, that looks fantastic.
I put it on and the cat came barging right in, thinking that she's going to chew the leg off it again.
So we should get to what Pierre Poilievre had to say, which was millionaire celebrities look down their noses at people in Newfoundland and Labrador. Oh, and by the way, the Inuit peoples who have harvested seals. Now, Sheila, I'll tell you this. I spent 2 years of my life in the mid-'70s living in St. John's, Newfoundland. And boy, oh boy, did I get an education about the vilification and the demonization of the seal hunt. And then, as now, it has not gone away from the Bridget Bardots of the world and the Greenpeaces of the world and on and on. First and foremost, why would animal rights activists dedicate themselves to protecting animals that, well, they're not endangered, they're not at threat. In fact, it's overpopulation. I looked at some of the stats, Sheila, from 2022. The harp seal population, because what you see mainly of the seals being harvested, it's mostly harp seals and some hooded seals. The harp seal population, 7.6 million seals. 7.6 million seals. And the hooded seal population, 650,000. And I always remember I had this beautiful book given to me when I was a kid in elementary school. It was Animals of Asia, it was called. And I'll never forget, so many of the animals were either endangered or near extinction. And I came across one, the Asiatic wild ass, almost extinct. And that's true as it is today. Why is it that the Asiatic wild ass, where is Bridget Bardot and company going to bat for the Asiatic wild ass? Oh, I forgot. That's one ugly donkey. But exactly. A harp seal pup? Oh, boy, that's an instant teddy bear. In fact, I think Greenpeace makes a lot of moolah selling little manufactured harp seal pups. So I don't know about you, Sheila. I look at the Asiatic wild ass. I love Asiatic wild ass. I think that's a nice animal. Why don't the activists go out and protect that animal as opposed to the harp seal, which is not threatened at all?
This is a greater societal problem. By the way, I'm overheating here. But really, if you look at the animal rights movement, it's largely a bunch of left-wing childless marms who are not going to have children for the sake of the planet. And so they look at these cute animals like seals and baby pandas and baby polar bears, and they look at them and I'm going to psychoanalyze people I've never met, but I think they're offloading their maternal instinct onto these animals. And I think they should probably just go home, eat a steak, and have a baby and not worry about these things. The seal population is decimating the fishery, yep. So not only are we putting the sealers out of work, but eventually the fishermen too. And all these people who care about social justice, guess who works in the sealing industry and the fur industry? By and large, by extension, it's mostly Indigenous people.
Yep.
Most of the people who run a trap line are Indigenous people. And this is a full frontal attack on the fur industry. So it's the seal industry, the sealers, it's all part of this global attack on fur. A bunch of people who don't have a problem with people being murdered by cartels because of the avocado trade. They've got a real problem with disgusting mink being killed for their fur at a fur farm.
Sheila,
Go ahead.
To your point, 10 years ago when I was employed at the Sun News Network, I went out to cover an anti-seal hunt protest at Young Dundas Square. The activists had this enormous inflatable seal pup, which, by the way, language is important because they refer to it as a baby seal, right? It's not a baby like a human baby. It's a seal pup. Anyways.
Right.
There were.
Oh, yeah, but don't call an unborn baby a baby.
Oh, exactly.
Call it a fetus.
Good point.
So,
a fetus.
Again, this is just, again, I say these people should probably just eat a steak, throw on some cowboy boots, and have a baby. And they would probably feel a lot better about the world, but they are not having children because they care about overpopulation, they care about Mother Earth, and so they're offloading all this biological imperative onto animals that are animals. They're not people, they're animals, and we're supposed to eat them and wear them.
100%. And here's the thing, Sheila, and I wish I had the video.
I gotta get out of
this. I did a little search. I did a little search, and oh my goodness, yeah, you're okay. I couldn't find it, but there was a Green Party member, a Toronto Green Party member at the demonstration, of course. And I went up to her and I said, why are you against the seal hunt? She rattled off the reasons. And then I said, but so many of the sealers are native. And this hunt is so important. It can be as much as 1/3 of their annual income, right? This one hunt alone. So she said, oh, well, no, we're not against natives hunting the seals, right? We would have an exemption from that. So I said, oh, that's interesting. So you're not anti-seal hunt. You are pro-race-based seal hunt.
Yeah,
and Sheila, it was like Bambi staring into the high beams of a Hummer on the 401 doing 150 clicks. I just held the microphone in front of her, and she literally said this. She turned to her assistant, and she said, Amy, help me. It was like a computer malfunctioning. And I will say this, too. In case you think this is all about the fur, that's not true either.
No.
There is the oil, and yes, there's an edible component. When I was in Newfoundland in season, you could go to Sobeys and you could buy seal flipper pie. The entire animal is used. Like I said, it is not endangered. Quite the opposite is true. You could argue that's an overpopulation. And it's all about the optics, Sheila. It's all about those seal pups. And I admit I'm an animal lover. It's a beautiful, beautiful creature. But that shouldn't take away from the science. Go and demonstrate for those primates, those rhinos in Africa that are, I believe the white rhino, the white northern rhino, there's only 2 left and they're both females. I mean, that is a species on borrowed time, not a bloody harp seal whose numbers are almost 8 million.
Yeah, there's a reason why the environmentalist left always adopts the polar bear, the cute, white, fluffy polar bear as their mascot, to sell their global warming agenda, even though there are more polar bears now than there were when they started counting them. So
correct.
They're not dying of climate change. If the world is indeed getting warmer, and I'm not sure that it is, and I'm not sure that you could ever measure that, polar bears are reaping the benefits of it. But yeah, it's a marketing scheme, right? That's all it is. It's a marketing scheme. It's the reason why they don't care about your beloved wild ass, and they care about baby seals. And you know what? That's another thing too. There's so much misinformation around the seal hunt.
Yeah.
That they are harvesting these white seals, meaning they're young. That's just not true. And taking any animal's life is gory. It can be gory. And so there will be blood on the ice, and it's hard to look at if you prefer your animal protein in a package from the grocery store, but somebody else has to do your dirty work along the way. And whatever happens at the kill floor in the abattoir, that happens on the ice. And, blood is spilled, and that's just how it is. It's, you know what really it opened a lot of people's eyes to this nonsense was the anti-fur people were perfectly fine with, I think it was like 17 million mink in Denmark being culled because the mink could be carriers of COVID. And for me, that was like the greatest demonstration of how actually they don't even care about the animals, because if another crisis comes along that they are more scared about, that's more social justice-y, they'll go with that because it's higher up on the totem pole. And yeah, the anti-fur people were like, yeah, this mink we wanted to set free, which by the way is a terrible idea. Do not set mink free. They're an invasive species where they do that. But yeah, they were perfectly fine with the mink cull, but just don't use the fur after we murder them because of COVID.
Why wouldn't you use the fur? One last point before we get to the super chats, Sheila. Again, back when I was in Newfoundland junior high school, and I remember coming across a story. I'd have to research this to make sure it was authentic, but there was a period in which, the celebrities and the hippies and the environmentalists, they'd come out onto the ice floes and they would have a can of green spray paint, for example, and they'd spray the harp seal pups
Paul McCartney did that, I think.
Pardon me?
I think Paul McCartney might have done that. I think you might be right.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, mission accomplished. You've ruined the pelt in terms of its commercial viability with all that paint on it. But guess what? Turns out that those seals, those pups that were spray painted, the mothers were rejecting them.
There's another reason that seal pups are white. It's the same reason that baby deer, fawns, have speckles on them. And it is an evolutionary trait that helps them survive to adulthood. So baby pups on the ice are white and they blend into the ice.
Yeah.
That's why the only little dark. So what they were doing was they were making these baby seal pups visible to predators by marking them with green, thinking you're going to save them from the sealers, even though they're not allowed to take baby pups. But you were marking them for death for the polar bears and other predators and killer whales and things. So great work, environmentalists.
That's a great point, Sheila. For the orcas and the polar bears, you've turned that seal pup into basically a Las Vegas casino with all these lights flashing. Look, free meat over here.
It shows how disconnected animal rights activists are from actual animals and actual nature and actual wildlife. Like, there's a reason why people like me and common sense people like you, David, would understand that the young of the species looks different than the adult of the species, and the young of the species often have different camouflage than the adults because they're hiding lower. Like, they're smaller, they have to hide differently, and it's an evolutionary thing. But no, these people are just absolute idiots. They care about the animals, but they don't know a damn thing about them. It's like people who care about animals and then they're like, my cat's a vegan just like me. And I'm like, your poor cat's going to die. Don't do that.
Indeed. As I say to all these activists, Sheila, leave the seal hunt alone. Focus your energy on species that really are at threat or endangered or about to become extinct. There's many, many, many of those animals, including my beloved Asiatic wild ass. Anyways, what's that?
Save the human babies. That's where I'm at. Just save the human babies. That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.